Good evening, Minister of Communications and Information and the Minister in charge of Smart Nation, Mrs. Josephine Teo, NTU President, Professor Subra Suresh, esteemed panelists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and not forgetting those who are joining us virtually. Welcome to the opening ceremony of Deep Learning Week 2021 held by MLDA at EEE. My name is Zhao Yinjie, and I'm a Year 3 student from EEE. As the Vice President of MLDA, it is my pleasure to be your MC tonight. Deep Learning Week, held by MLDA at EEE, is an AI-related event providing students with rich opportunities and resources to learn more skills and experience on AI. Tonight, it is our honor to have with us Minister Mrs. Josephine Teo, Professor Subra Suresh, and top-notch panelists in AI industry and academia to give us their insight. It is now my honor to invite the President of MLDA at EEE, Mr. Sugong, to deliver his introductory address. Mr. Sugong, please.
Good evening, guest of honor, Minister Josephine Teo, President of NTU, Professor Subra Suresh, esteemed panelists, distinguished guests, and virtual attendees. I am Andrew Ivan, a final year NTU student majoring in electrical and electronic engineering, and I am currently the President of Machine Learning and Data Analytics Lab at the School of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, or MLDA at EEE for short. As the President of MLDA at EEE, it is my honor to welcome everyone here to MLDA's flagship event, Deep Learning Week 2021. Before we start this week-long event officially, I would like to take this opportunity to share with everyone our initiatives and events here at MLDA at EEE. MLDA at EEE is a student-led club that aims to provide a platform to empower NTU students to pursue the application of machine learning, data analytics, and artificial intelligence. We do so by providing them with a place to learn, apply, and connect with our industry partners and the academia. To promote learning of essential concepts of machine learning and data analytics, MLDA has curated various machine learning workshops across various topics, from basic Python workshop to advanced deep learning workshop, such as computer vision, natural language processing, and many others that are not only useful for students who want to start their machine learning journey, but also for students who wish to upgrade their machine learning skill sets. Beyond academic training, we also focus on keeping our students up to date with the latest research effort and innovation in AI and machine learning. Hence, we have our ML Insider series, whereby we invite renowned speakers, such as researchers or entrepreneurs who are expert in the field of AI, to conduct sharing on their experience working in the field of AI, to help students get inspiration and insights on working in the field of AI. Moving on to the next pillar, apply. We want our students to take what they have learned and apply it in the form of projects. Hence, we support any proposed machine learning or AI projects that they would like to embark on. And here are just some of the talented in-house projects made by our talented students. For example, on the top right, we have our own in-house face tracking drone, which can follow your face and detect your gesture. And on the lower right, we have our own face and mask detection device as well. Beyond projects, we also organize our in-house hackathon, competition, and challenges to spark passion and interest of the NTU student population in machine learning and AI. For example, we have had our own MLDA AI Football Cup, where students compete against each other in building the best AI model that can play football in a simulated environment. And we even have our own AI research poster competition, which is part of our annual AI Research Student Conference, which is an undergraduate student conference which aims to promote AI research among undergraduate students and provide them a feel of how an AI conference will be like through a 3-day-long event packed with tutorial sessions taught by renowned professors in the field of AI. Lastly, we work closely with all our industry partners to bring about industry ad hoc projects, final year projects, and internship opportunities to our students through virtual career booths and company sharing sessions, hence further connecting our students to the industry and showcasing the talent pool of NTU students to companies. And even some of our alumni has gotten an internship, full-time job, and even a PhD scholarship with our industry partner. And this is done through our flagship event, Deep Learning Week, which started in 2019. And it is a week-long event dedicated to promote machine learning to the general public through panel discussion with renowned speakers, virtual career fair, and also daily workshops on various deep learning topics. And in 2020, not only we managed to invite a panel of esteemed panelists, but we are very thankful to have the privilege to invite the then Minister in charge of Smart Nation, Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan, as our guest of honor. Moreover, in that same year, we kickstarted our first MLDA Deep Learning Week hackathon, which received a positive response from more than 50 participants signing up. For this year, following on last year's success, we decided to upscale this year's Deep Learning Week hackathon with the help of our industry partner, Micron, by opening this hackathon to all Singapore universities, polytechnics, and JCs with the aim to garner more interest and spark more innovation in the field of AI. Beyond that, for this year's opening ceremony, we are thankful to have the privilege to invite Mrs. Josephine Teo, Minister of Communications and Information, and Minister in charge of Smart Nation and Cybersecurity as our guest of honor, alongside our distinguished panelists for panel discussion on AI-driven future of Singapore industry. With that, I would like to wish everyone here a pleasant experience ahead on our Deep Learning Week 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sugong, for the insightful speech. It is now my honor to invite NTU President, Professor Subra Suresh, to deliver his welcome address. Professor Suresh, please.
Guest of honor, Minister Josephine Teo, distinguished panelists and guests, colleagues, students, those who are joining online, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to the Deep Learning Week 2021, organized by NTU students from the Machine Learning and Data Analytics Lab of the School of Electrical and Electronics and Electronic Engineering, or EEE. I'm really delighted to see so many enthusiastic students coming together for this event. The Machine Learning and Data Analytics Lab, or MLDA in short, is an initiative started 3 years ago by students from EEE. Through various activities and events, it has provided opportunities for NTU students and staff to learn, research, and apply their skills in machine learning, data analytics, and AI. The increasing use of digital data and computational resources, along with AI, has become more powerful than ever before. As it's transforming the world very rapidly, a multitude of AI technologies and applications have already changed the way we live and work. Take, for example, the device that all of us have in our possession right now, a mobile phone. We can simply talk to our mobile phones to help us reserve a table at an event or a restaurant, or even be our personal translator. AI has also increased the productivity and efficiency of the workforce in many industries that include education, manufacturing, e-commerce, or banking. In some countries, we can even get a loan approved within a matter of hours just by using a mobile app. AI technology has the potential to improve human lives and enhance society's possibilities in Singapore and around the world. Indeed, NTU's ambitious 5-year strategic plan, or NTU 2025, seeks to address the most pressing challenges facing humanity that includes furthering research and innovation in the field of AI, and push the boundaries of what AI can do in 4 different areas that define great global challenges for not only the current generation, but also for future generations. One of our aspirations is not only to maximize the benefits of AI, the intended benefits of AI, but equally to minimize the unintended consequences of humans' intentional or unintentional use, misuse, or abuse of AI. And that's why NTU, 3 years ago, founded the NTU Institute of Science and Technology for Humanity as one of the objectives at the cross-section of technology and human behavior. I'm very proud to share with you some of the innovations that NTU researchers have achieved in this area. Recently, a team of researchers from NTU and Tan Tock Seng Hospital have successfully developed an AI tool that can detect glaucoma from 2 pictures taken of a retina with an accuracy of 97%. Another team of researchers from NTU, Ngee Polytechnic, and the National Heart Center, Singapore, invented a tool that can speed up the diagnosis of cardiovascular diseases. Powered by artificial intelligence, their innovation uses electrocardiograms, or ECGs, to diagnose coronary artery diseases, myocardial infarction, and congestive heart failure to an accuracy of more than 98.5%. Beyond research, NTU is also fully supportive of business ideas that leverage AI to add value. Earlier this year, Wiz Mobility, a startup founded by 7 NTU students and an SUTD student, developed a fleet of self-driving robots that provide smarter, greener, and contactless deliveries. This fleet of robots has delivered thousands of meals and goods, which in this pandemic has helped reduce crowds and in turn reduce the potential risk of COVID transmission. I'm also pleased to share that last year, Forbes magazine named NTU's undergraduate data science and artificial intelligence program among the world's top 10, affirming our role in training future leaders like yourselves for a world shaped by the 4th Industrial Revolution. Some of the most exciting and interesting outcomes will be those that we can't yet imagine, but I'm confident it'll only bring value to the industry. It'll not only bring value to the industry, but also improve the way we live. The theme for today's panel discussion, AI-driven future of Singapore industry, is thus very timely. The pandemic has accelerated the digitization of our economy, which has helped fuel the adoption of AI. Hence, it will also be critical for us to think carefully about what the introduction of these new technologies may lead to, the intended as well as unintended consequences. I'm glad to have with us today panelists who are experts in their respective AI domain sharing their insights and opinions. An exciting virtual AI career fair has also been lined up, followed by a series of enriching workshops and an AI hackathon. I believe this Deep Learning Week is going to be useful to students and the general public. Many of them have expressed interest to join the events. Before I conclude, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the sponsors and industry partners who support and believe in our students. My appreciation also goes out to all staff and students who have worked tirelessly during this pandemic behind the scenes to make this event happen. I wish everyone a very fruitful learning week ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Suresh, for the insightful speech. It is now my privilege to invite our guest of honor, Mrs. Josephine Teo, to deliver her speech. Mrs. Teo, please.
Good evening, Professor Subra Suresh, President of NTU, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me here today, and I'm very pleased to join you for this year's edition of Deep Learning Week. This is a student-initiated event which speaks volumes about the passion among our students for the growing field of AI and machine learning. I'm also heartened to hear about the strong turnout of virtual participants. The impetus for this passion is clear. AI technologies allow us to push the boundaries of the impossible and stoke our imaginations with the promise they bring. Given the seemingly limitless possibilities, many companies, regardless of size and industry sector, have turned to AI and machine learning as a new area of growth. In a short span of 5 years, global corporate investments in AI have increased fivefold, hitting $68 billion in 2020. That's about 90 billion Singapore dollars. AI has enabled businesses to optimize operations and understand their customers at a more granular level. This allows businesses to offer new products and services that better suit their customers' needs. Some among here may even have experienced it when shopping at Japanese clothing chain Uniqlo. To improve the shopping experience, Uniqlo worked with local AI firm Visense. What they did was to take an AI solution provided by Visense and allow customers to no longer have to approach a staff member for information about a product. Instead, simply by using their phones to snap a photograph, not the catalog, just the photograph, just not the product number, just the photograph of the item, they can actually retrieve information about the item very easily. And of course, they can do this anytime, anywhere within the store. Now, at the broader societal level, AI technology also brings many opportunities to transform how we live, work, and play. Several useful AI applications already exist today. For example, mapping our daily commutes, recommending videos to watch, and tracking our sleep cycles, just to name a few. These applications will likely develop in myriad ways, contributing not just to personal tasks like helping us to shop more efficiently or take care of our health, but also helping to solve global challenges like making use of renewable energies in a better way and building a more secure food supply. However, there is still much work to be done before we can fully reap the benefits of AI. Many will be familiar with the concerns around the ethical and safe use of AI. As usage of the technology grows, we will need to develop robust governance standards and frameworks to guide our use of AI systems while strengthening our capabilities to ensure that the AI systems are safe, reliable, and fair. We will also face many challenges in deploying AI, from unlocking data to transforming processes. To address these challenges, we will need to bring the stakeholders together and reduce implementation barriers so that AI can be used more quickly and easily. Recognizing AI's potential, the government is committing significant resources to accelerate the adoption of AI in Singapore. We have embarked on ambitious national AI programs in key sectors such as healthcare, logistics, education, municipal services, and border security. Through these projects, we aim to not only deliver impact to our economy and society, but also to better understand the challenges stakeholders face when deploying AI. This is so that we can better address these roadblocks at a systemic level. I am happy to share that we have seen some early successes. For example, we have deployed Selena Plus, an AI-enabled tool for retinal image analysis in all 20 polyclinics across Singapore. This is very similar in idea to the project that Professor Subra Suresh described earlier. Selena Plus also uses machine learning to help screen patients at risk for diabetic retinopathy more quickly and accurately. With Selena Plus, earlier treatment interventions can be made. The other project I want to talk about is the Municipal Services Office's new AI-powered One Service chatbot. Now, this chatbot allows residents to easily report municipal issue via WhatsApp and Telegram. It also uses machine learning, but in a different way. It evaluates the nature of feedback being reported and routes the report to the right agency so it can be dealt with promptly. I should also say that this chatbot knows how to calm people down, because usually when you report a municipal issue, you're pretty upset already. And I tested it myself, found the language to be quite, calming and able to help me feel a sense of progress in handling that particular feedback. In addition to the national AI programs, we are also strengthening ecosystem enablers to support AI adoption in Singapore. We've invested more than $500 million into AI research and development over the last 5 years, and we intend to do more in the years to come. In the fundamental research space, we will focus on capabilities that are strategic to Singapore, such as explainable AI, resource-efficient AI, and privacy-preserving AI. So these three areas: explainability, resource efficiency, and privacy preservation. We are also investing in initiatives such as AI Singapore's 100 Experiments program to better translate research into application. Through the program, industry players can work with engineers from AI Singapore and institutes of higher learning researchers to develop cutting-edge AI applications together. In the area of AI governance, we have invested in sharpening our ability to deploy solutions in a fair, inclusive, and ethical manner. We will continue to do so, ensuring that AI can be used safely and without bias. IMDA launched the second iteration of its Model AI Governance Framework in early 2020. The framework articulates the key ethical and governance issues in deploying AI solutions. To help stakeholders utilize it, IMDA has also launched an implementation and self-assessment guide for organizations. On the international stage, Singapore works closely with our peers through platforms such as the Global Partnership on AI to learn from each other's experiences and address mutual interests through joint initiatives. Within the government, we are also leveraging AI to transform public services, focusing on high-impact areas like improving policy analysis and formulation, and automating processes to overcome manpower constraints and providing personalized and anticipatory services to citizens. One example is My Careers Future, a jobs portal developed by Workforce Singapore in partnership with GovTech. My Careers Future now uses AI engines to identify suitable jobs based on a job seeker's skill sets, allowing them to be matched with jobs more accurately and quickly. We hope that these investments will not only deliver transformative impact to Singaporeans, but also provide more opportunities for industry players and research teams so that we can develop a thriving AI ecosystem in Singapore. The developments I have just described mean that demand for AI talent is expected to grow in the years ahead. Just to give you a sense of scale, about 10,000 jobs have been filled every year for the past 5 years in the infocom sector alone. This does not yet include the need for tech talent, in particular AI talent, across other industries. So if we look at the number of vacant tech jobs, jobs that still remain unfulfilled, depending on which portal you go to, it can range anywhere between 15 to 25,000. And this, of course, cuts across the entire economy. So we must continue to help Singaporeans upgrade and acquire new skills to meet this demand through initiatives like IMDA's Tech Skills Accelerator Program and AI Singapore's AI Apprenticeship Program. The demand for AI talent will span across a variety of roles and industries. Besides researchers and engineers, we will also need talent who specialize in operating and maintaining AI systems, and those who are focused on protecting the integrity of such systems. This demand will need to be met by aspiring professionals like the students who are participating in this event today, who are not just well-versed in the fundamentals, but also passionate about the potential of AI to solve tangible, real-life problems. Your innovation is needed to explore how these technologies can be used to build new products and services, experiment with new methods of doing things, and improve people's lives in profound ways. I look forward to learning about the meaningful projects that you embark on in the years to come. It will be an exciting journey with a range of opportunities and resources to support you on the road ahead. Deep Learning Week is one such excellent resource to explore interest areas and pursue your passions. So I hope it is not just the subject matter that is deep learning, but also that you will find opportunities to delve deeply into the technology and perhaps learn something new. I wish you all a most fruitful and meaningful week of discovery ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Still, for the insightful speech. Could you please remain on stage for a photograph? I would like to invite the following guests up on stage to join our guest of honor for the group photograph. NTU President, Professor Suresh, and Mr. Sugong. And our panelists for tonight, Dr. Lai Kim Moon, Executive Director of Institute for Infocom Research of A*STAR. Mr. Lee Ning Kang, Director for Smart Manufacturing and AI of Micron Technologies. Dr. Edikan Karupaya, Director of NVIDIA. Mr. Madhul Mayank Sharma, Senior Director of Engineering, Head of AI Business Services Singapore of SAP. Mr. Shidat Jadaf, Founder and CEO of Polybean. As well as our moderator, Dr. Wesley Tan Chi-Wah, Senior Lecturer of NTU School of EEE. Welcome. Thank you. And now it is my honor to invite Professor Suresh to present the token of appreciation to Mrs. Still. Thank you, Mrs. Still and Professor Suresh, for taking time off your busy schedules to join us at this opening ceremony. I would like to invite Mrs. Still and Professor Suresh to return to their seats. And our esteemed panelists to take their seats on stage. And now I will hand over the time to our moderator, Dr. Wesley Tan, for the panel discussion of the topic, AI-driven future of Singapore industry. Dr. Tan, please.
Thank you, Ying-Jie. All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the panel discussion of Deep Learning Week 2021. All right. I'm Wesley, the moderator, and with me are the panelists who will be discussing on the topic, AI-driven future of the industries in Singapore. All right. Maybe it's good for us to get to know them a bit better before we start the discussion. So panelists, one at a time, is good to let us know your name, your company you come from, a bit about what your company is doing, and what is your role in the company. All right, so probably we can start from the leftmost, and then we go down until panelists on my right. Okay, thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Siddharth Jadhav. I'm CEO at Polybee, and I also founded the company a couple of years back. So Polybee as a company is on a mission to enhance food security. And in our first service offering, how we're doing that is by building technologies that help improve productivity of high-value crops. And we do this by automating two main operations. Number one is pollination of fruit and veg crops, and number two is automation of plant measurements, which helps us sort of close the feedback loop on cultivation. We focused on these two operations because we think it is these technologies that will help us have the biggest impact on yield improvement. We leverage three pillars of technology that enable us to solve these problems. Number one is a method of pollination that we have developed for majority of the fruit crops that are grown in controlled environment agriculture. Number two is automation of micro drones. This is a differentiating pillar that we've built specifically for the controlled environment agriculture sector. And number three is a computer vision platform that enables us to not only automate the flight of drones, but also perform certain key measurements on plants. So we leverage these three pillars of technologies differently based on who the customers are. We work with a pretty broad base of customers, starting from agriculture input companies like seed companies, greenhouse operators, and indoor vertical farming companies. Our customers are distributed all across the globe. We have customers in the UK, Australia, APAC as well. And as a company, we are a spin-off venture from National University of Singapore, and we are backed by Temasek Foundation, the philanthropy arm of Temasek Holdings. And the reason why these institutes decided to back us is that the technologies that we are building are going to play a key role in contributing to Singapore's food security, since we can grow a wider portfolio of crops, such as fruit and veg crops, locally. So that's just a quick overview on what we do. Personal introduction. So I'm not an AI practitioner myself, but I have the privilege of working with an immensely talented team that is building these technologies. So I get to learn a lot from them. And I'm really looking forward to this panel discussion today, where I hope to learn a lot myself and also contribute what we've seen in the industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Atikan. I'm from NVIDIA. So NVIDIA is an AI computing platform company, right? Consistently in the last many years, we've been providing the AI hardware, which is then be the base platform, connects all type of algorithm frameworks and application that being developed by many companies in the world. So it's not only the hardware, which is a fundamental that we actually continuously every year performing as the top MLPerf machine learning performance benchmark being done globally as a top company. We provide entire software solution stack for every researchers, developers out there to develop their algorithms, develop the application so that they can deploy across all verticals. As you know, autonomous driving is one of the areas that we have been driving for quite some time, but it has gone into agriculture, it has gone in terms of telecommunication in terms of 5G, it goes into digital biology, it has gone into healthcare, and so forth. So as a fundamental AI computing company, and also a platform company, our solution goes across all vertical, and we have been very happy in the journey working with researchers like yourself in NTU, and also developers and also startups in the region to continuously develop application which will change our lives and also future lives to come, so that it's a better world and better place for us to live. Thank you.
Hello and good evening. My name is Lai Kin Man. I am the Executive Director of the Institute for Infocom Research, which is one of the research institutes under A*STAR, or Agency for Science, Technology, and Research. In I²R, we have a range of activities ranging from basic research or use-inspired basic research to applied research and to translation. So we work quite a lot with companies to co-develop solutions and to solve some of their problems. We work on many areas, ranging from designing antennas to writing application software. But I would say that today, you can almost call us an AI research institute, because AI has found its way into all of these areas. So today, we are about 500 researchers, and about half of them have PhDs, and the other half are our engineers. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ning Kang. I represent Micron tonight in this forum. A little bit about Micron first. So Micron is a memory solutions provider. So what we do is we build memory chips. In this fast-growing AI and remote economy, the appetite for more compute, more data is growing, and it's exponentially growing. So our solutions are there to cater to store this data and allow you to do more with the data that's available today. My role is I lead smart manufacturing in Micron. What that means is we, as an organization, as a smart manufacturing organization, play the role of operationalizing I 4.0 technology. So moving all these cool use cases into practical, operational way of working for Micron today, so that we can get better at productivity, we can deliver better solutions, we can deliver at the best quality and the best cost for these memory solutions. And happy to be here with the panelists and also everyone online to share a little bit about AI and how Micron is embracing this new technology.
Hi, good evening. My name is Madhur Mayank Sharma. Hello. Okay. Hi, good evening. My name is Madhur Mayank Sharma, and I'm heading AI development unit for SAP in Singapore. SAP is the market leader in enterprise software provider, which is used by all the major industry players across all the lines of businesses. As part of the AI development unit, we are responsible for building AI capabilities for SAP's product portfolio and introduce them into the market across all lines of businesses and 24+ industries. We are also responsible for releasing, deploying, and scaling these AI capabilities across thousands of customers and millions of users across the globe. So we are part of the Global AI Development Unit, and happy to share that AI for SAP was born in Singapore. We started AI development capabilities for SAP in Singapore through the collaboration of NTU and NUS back in 2014. And happy to be here. Looking forward to an insightful discussion from our expert panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists, for sharing. Okay, let's get the ball rolling. But before that, let's do a recap. The last Deep Learning Week last year, we were at phase 2, and things were going quite good. All right, we are going to phase 3, whereby we can dine in larger groups, socialize, work as well. I do remember myself with my relatives in a table of 8, okay, and we are going forward to having our favorite buffet. But then, things do not get well then. In May, the Delta variant was getting very serious, And we had a series of loosening, tightening, loosening. And I remember a couple of cannot dine in, can dine in. Okay, so it's making people quite confusing. Okay, and as of today, what's happening is that starting from Wednesday, we can dine in a group of 2 at a restaurant, cafe, coffee shop, market, wet market, as long as we are vaccinated. And we can only go into supermarket if we are vaccinated. But recovery, home recovery is the default mode. If we have mild symptoms, we can recover at home. All right, so given the current situation and the direction we are moving forward, what do you think is the, from your point of view, your thoughts, what is the current status of AI? Has something interesting been developed since the past year? Something even more interesting? Or has projects on planned long ago been on hold, scraped off, or still progressing well? So please, panelists, feel free to voice out your thoughts, please. Anyone can give a go?
Yep, I can go first.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a very interesting question. You related in a different perspective. What is today's state of art of AI in industry, and also how solution being built? If you can see, the pandemic is the biggest challenge to us. At the same time, it also gave us a lot of opportunity to create innovation, to solve problem. And if you can see, humanity thrived. If it is not, we managed to overcome, right? In the process of overcoming. So from NVIDIA perspective, not only for us, but all our partners invested more in AI. And if you ask me, the investment is keep growing because all of us have to work from home, and computing becomes fundamental, communication is so critical, and all of us know what is Zoom, we know what is Microsoft Teams, and all kind of applications because we've been communicating. From industry perspective, I would say is the adoption is increased. It's actually getting deeper. So we have billions of devices. Soon we're going to have trillions of devices with AI capability. And the growth of AI, if you look at it in terms of algorithm, it's going to the scale with all the researchers, including NTU, NUS, and all the universities globally, building models which are much more complicated and complex, so that our conversational AI, for example, is getting much better. That's one area, which is NLP, one area. We can talk about it later. The next, if you look at within the what I call as a digital biology, right? The discovery of potential drugs that can help human being, right? It's all, many of the companies globally adopting AI to find the right molecule structure, which is, helped a lot of pharmaceutical companies as well. So we have seen AI accelerated in building models, in terms of building right algorithms, so that it can help all our researchers to find problems so that we can solve our current problem, which is the pandemic, but also the future problems. In terms of mobility, for example, if you look at it, robotaxi, eventually is going to come, and we could be using it in a couple of years. We have seen number of cities in the world adapted. So all this accelerated during this pandemic, right? And that's all going to continue even after the pandemic is over. All this is going to continue, whether it's healthcare, whether it's in transportation, the way that we communicate, it's all going to be better. One is in terms of model itself, but on the other side is we see the implementation by industry, the application of the AI in terms of solutioning. It also getting much easier, much simpler, so much so we don't really going to see AI. We see only the outcome of AI, the impact of AI. So for example, as part of my work, I work with the translational research people, right? One of the projects in Australia, they are spraying pesticide only to the weeds because they can apply AI where the tractor, as it moves through across the crop, it actually identify what is the vegetation and what is wheat. So the spray is only done to the wheats, not to the vegetables, right? So it's going to help us in terms of food production, in terms of having healthier life, mobility as shared with you before, right? So the application of AI goes into each and every vertical beyond what we see, but helps our life. That's what I feel in terms of what we've been working with industry partners. I'll pass it to the other panelists to add on as well.
So maybe I build on what Dr. Atikan has said. I think every large event, every significant event accelerates a certain growth. And I think I'd like to bring us back to the first time we witnessed machine learning was during World War II. I think most of you have watched the movie Enigma, where no one really thought a computer could help do something which is that value add and would save many, many thousands of lives, right? So that was the first event of an accelerated movement towards using machines to help us think quicker. For Micron at least, I'll speak in the Micron's perspective and a manufacturing perspective. The pandemic has, and as Wesley has mentioned, drove also a little bit the acceleration of AI within Micron. So we started this journey of implementing AI on our manufacturing facilities, in our manufacturing lines, using it in our production floors, but not at that accelerated rate. So when the pandemic came, there were multiple things that happened. Number one, we were not able to be in the same room. So technology was required. The accelerated implementation of technology was required. Analysis needed to be done remotely. There was also a huge demand in memory storage chips because people were asking for more and more devices. So we had to find a way, a step change in how we deal with this new demand. It's not going to be possible in the short term that we build new facilities, we bring in new machines. Those take lead time. So we ramped up quite a bit in using AI to help us get better at yield, get better at quality, get better at planning. So a lot of these complicated steps that we have in our wafer manufacturing processes, a human will not be able to do. So we ramped up a lot of the effort in using these technologies very practically in Micron. And I would like to say, I think we've grown quite a bit in the past couple of years. During the pandemic, we started smart manufacturing as about 200 headcount. We're about 700 today. So it was a huge growth for Micron. So I think it is quite a testament that how AI itself can really help us achieve or unlock potential without actually having too much capex, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, in fact, I had a pleasure working with your team, solving some of the defects detection problem
exactly.
in Micron Singapore with your engineers. Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a very true example of how industries reacted. And to be honest, global industries have been really fortunate enough that every industry player, be it small, medium, or large enterprise, had their experience with AI in pre-pandemic era. All the challenges, the bitter and sweet taste of AI, successes and failures, they experienced much before the pandemic hit. And in that experience, what happened that they learned all the challenges which are involved in terms of developing, deploying, and rolling out your AI scenarios at scale in a secure manner at a global level. And pandemic, what it did was it actually helped implement that learning into best practices. Industries were able to formulate the strategies, how they should be able to develop, how they should be rolling out those AI scenarios in a secure and scalable manner, keeping in mind the data privacy and all those data security related aspects, and roll it out at scale. And in that process, what another trend which emerged was industries were able to attack all those low-hanging fruit scenarios, which are generally done by rule-based systems or by human in a repetitive manner on day-to-day basis. All these scenarios were sweet spot for AI to address. And what pandemic did was not only accelerate the digitalization of their business process, but also made them more automative and intelligent with the introduction of AI at the stage which is apt for introduction, which is while you're digitizing your business process and you introduce AI, it's much easier than introducing AI in a process which is already digitalized and running for years and years in a best practice manner. So these are the trends which emerged in pandemic, and it actually helped industries adopt AI with much more confidence. And slowly now we are seeing a trend where industries are moving from these low impact, low critical processes to a high impact, high critical processes where AI can make a really big difference for their consumers, for their business, for their end users. So in a way, yes, pandemic was a boon for AI, I would say.
So, from my perspective, AI also started well before the pandemic. We saw the explosion of AI applications maybe about 2-3 years before the pandemic actually started. So we were able to pivot very quickly to address some of the needs of the COVID-19 situation. So for example, we've been doing a lot of visual analytics using AI, and we could very quickly pivot that into looking at X-rays of patients to kind of triage which are the ones that require more urgent attention. But I think the greatest, I would say the greatest future trend that has showed up from our perspective, it's not the only one, right, is robotics. Because the COVID-19 pandemic has made it very difficult for close contact between humans. And robotics is a technology that could solve that particular problem. So for example, recently you may have heard that there's this Mata robot that was patrolling in Toa Payoh, right? So it was basically a surveillance robot, but it was pivoted to become a smart safe management officer. And it could actually tolerate a lot of abuse that human SMOs could not. Thank you.
So I think my fellow panelists have already shared excellent insights on how AI has evolved over the past couple of years in the light of the pandemic. Maybe what I can try to do is sort of try to summarize it and view it along a few axes. You know, one of the axes could be adoption. And I think in that sense, you know, it could further be broken down into two kinds of adoption: horizontal in terms of industry and vertical in terms of business function in every single industry. And I think it's fairly clear that, you know, as everyone has highlighted here, adoption has accelerated across the board. There's still some skewness there. So, you know, tech companies, and by tech I mean, you know, internet, e-commerce, fintech, deep tech companies, have certainly had an unfair advantage when it comes to accelerating AI development. But we've always, you know, over the past sort of a couple of years, we have seen that grow across horizontally as well, even in the industries which probably wouldn't have seen the deployment of AI systems as soon. One good example of that being agriculture, as Dr. Ettiken has also pointed out. I'll probably explain with some details as well what we've seen. But that's one way of looking at adoption. In terms of vertical adoption across every industry function, I think that's also where we've seen deeper penetration in operations, in sales and marketing, and also for simple things like optimization of inventory and so on. All of these things are making their contributions to every single industry. The other second axis, which I think is important to want to look at, is value creation within these business functions. And I think that's also where the acceleration has been quite apparent. The key question there being, you know, how has investment in AI brought returns to every single industry? And I think there's a twofold trend there. One is, improvement in top line, and second is, of course, reduction in cost as well. Improvement in top line is quite apparent as well, especially for a lot of tech companies, and some accelerators there have been tools, AI tools deployed in services, in marketing, and sales as well. I mean, we all experience that day in and day out, right? Maybe you might be looking up your favorite sneakers on Google, and the next thing you see, it's all over your Instagram. So tools like these have really accelerated revenues, or rather sales. Second function, of course, being cost reduction, which is quite apparent, in light of reduced labor availability. AI systems have helped us reduce costs. So value creation is I think the benefit there is extremely apparent, and it's showing that the investments in AI are reaping their benefits. And the last probably axis which I see is adoption in terms of sophistication of the AI system. So I think a lot of applications that we discussed across industries, a lot of them have been through adoption of simple ML tools, linear regression, multivariate regression. These are simple tools, but they have immense value to add across different functions. And there's also a bit of skewness where more sophisticated tools like deep learning have been used in the tech industry, but now they have started finding their way in older industries like agriculture. So I think, just to summarize, that's how I would probably look at how AI has evolved and accelerated across these few axes. And one industry that we've had the sort of opportunity to observe it closely is agriculture, where, as it's mankind's oldest industry, but least equipped at the same time. And what the pandemic has highlighted is how dependent we are on labor to get food to the table. And this is also where AI has its immense potential. I think we are in the pre-gold rush era of AI in agriculture, and we're super excited to be in the space, and the possibilities are endless. So that's probably just a quick summary of what I just heard.
Thank you, panelists, for sharing. There are some important points that I sort of can extract from some of you. The first thing is Mr. Lee was talking about hardware. So it is very true. For example, the apps in our phone, right? They become more advanced because it's possible because of the hardware. And to keep up, to have AI, we need more computational power. So it's not about the software, but the hardware must keep in pace as well. All right. And the second thing is, Mr. Mayank, you mentioned about security. Yes, because AI, we need information to predict, to get results. And this data we get from people, they'll be very concerned. Okay, so another thing is that while we are moving forward, we need to keep in check that the data are used securely, and privacy is still there. Another thing mentioned robotics by Dr. Lai, right? Dr. Lai mentioned about robotics. Okay, people are worried that, okay, as we go advanced, we have those like Mata robots can do policing work, and others can do manufacturing as well. The people here, I think the audience are very concerned about jobs. So next question will be, given the advance of AI technology, what do you think? Probably some jobs are becoming obsolete, but we are more interested in what are the jobs that will be up in the market on offer that our audience are interested to know. Maybe you can share from the perspective of your companies, what kind of jobs are available pertaining to AI or in general in the industry? So anyone would like to answer that first?
Yeah, so maybe I take this. I think this is becoming quite a common question. Everyone's quite worried about your livelihood. Would the robots take over? The answer is yes, the robots would take over some jobs, but new jobs, different jobs will be created. So in an example of the robot, somebody would need to train the robot. Somebody would need to maintain the robot. Somebody would need to, enhance the robot, make it better as we evolve. So the jobs will be very, very different. Let me just paint a picture of Micron, right? 2015, we started our first big data team. It wasn't even called smart manufacturing back then. It was called big data because, fortunately, like one of the deep tech companies, we as semiconductor companies have stored a lot of data. We just didn't do very much with it. So we started the big data team. It started with a 20 headcount. Yeah.
it's 2021. And not even the end of 2021. We are at 700 headcount. So traditionally, a company like Micron will not hire data scientists or data engineers or machine learning engineers. We do have all these roles today. We have, I would say, almost a parallel organization to the manufacturing organization to do exactly this. Use information, use data that we existingly have to make smarter decisions, faster decisions, better decisions. So I think, no, what we will get is jobs of higher value unlocking itself due to the evolution of the demand. Because we want things faster, we want things better, we want things cheaper. Hence, we will find new ways to do it. Robotics is one. Leveraging a lot of AI algorithms to help us get more and more sophisticated, more and more precise with the decisions that we make. Hence, in order to upkeep this evolution of us wanting more and better, there will be more different jobs that will be created.
Yeah, I would like to add on, if you look at our history, right, from NVIDIA, as we work with across all industries, there was the first industrial revolution, which we have seen, the combustion engine with the steam, and then there's be a boat, so we can actually travel across with the steam capability and so forth. The next revolution, with the finding electricity, I think Tesla has done a great job, and we had electricity, and then you've seen a lot of machines, so you can sew your clothes by yourself. There's a sewing machine. There is, electrical-based equipments available in our house, made our life much easier. And there was a job change, right, happen. The next, if you look at it, the IT revolution, when it came in 90s. Of course, a lot of us, many of us are still studying back then, concerned about what kind of job am I going to get, right? Most of us, if you see, our parents' job got nothing to do with what I'm doing today. If I were to go and tell my father I'm doing this job, and when I told him, right, when he was alive, he couldn't understand what I'm talking about. Right? He came from a farming background. He said, this is useless. What you are doing? Right? I don't understand what you're doing. I just, my job is, I work with the farming-related activities, right? The same thing is going to happen in the current revolution, which is the fourth industrial revolution, which is AI, right? So the fear is common. And of course, AI is transforming the whole job nature. And we just need to overcome the fear with solving problems that will make our life much better, right? So the the third revolution changed a lot of jobs. Today, you don't have a job called a typist. There is no more typing machines, right? Where you typewriters is not there anymore, right? Similarly, some of the machines going to change. Like Dr. Lai mentioned, right? So in terms of robotics, autonomous system, there will be autonomous robots going to do many tasks that we can't imagine even today will be done by autonomous robots. So the transformation will take place. But together with the transformation, it creates new type of jobs, right? In the process of doing so, there'll be new skill set is required. So the whole reskilling or unlearn, relearn, the whole process has to take place. And we need to continuously work on that so that AI actually helps us to overcome the fear, solve the problem that we're going to face. See, for example, by 2030, currently we have about 7.88 billion people in the world. By 2030, there's going to be 8.5 billion, from 7.8 become 8.5, and I was told by 2050 it's going to be close to 9 billion people. Think about production, food production, think about mobility, think about housing. A lot of problems are going to come, right? So we need to have AI to facilitate, to help us to live better life. So it's about overcoming the fear and also finding solutions which are going to solve the problems that we have across all type of verticals in industries that we need to solve.
If I may add to Dr. Atikan's point, a perspective, but in a contradictory manner. Never in our history though we have seen so much revolution, industrial automation and internet boom, .com, emergence of .com, but never in our history we have seen the emergence of the computational power, the access to data, and building a system which is equivalent to human intelligence. This has never happened in the past. This is happening for the first time. So learning from this, if we learn from historical trend, we may easily predict, yes, jobs will be replaced, but new jobs will be created, and we will have to upskill. But this time, we have to also keep in mind these trends, the access to computational power, abundance of data, and the intelligence level, which is increasing day by day as we speak of these algorithms coming very close to human intelligence. There will be a time that, yes, some of us will move up the ladder in terms of skills, in terms of contributing to the society with the skills which we acquire, but there will be a section of society which will may not be able to contribute in the manner which other section of society would do. And I would say that in that case, the countries across the globe will have to develop a new social fabric, new social mechanism through which we can bring and keep these section of societies who keep along with them and make them help contribute to the society of the future. So we will survive. We as a human race have always survived, right? But it'd be a different flavor of survival and different flavor of how we earn and how we contribute to the society. So that's a different contradictory perspective.
I mean, we are aligned. If you say it's a problem that we need to find and we need to solve, certain layer of the community. I think that's a very good book by Dr. Yuval Harari. If you look at it, he has a series of books, and Dr. Lai as well. That's another book written. So it's interesting. Of course, they all have a perception of layers of people may not actually able to be trained and so forth. But if you look at it, in many countries, where the developed countries, there's an aging community. There is a care which is required. So are we really ready, trained people with equipments, equipped with AI and technology to live a better life? So that actually creates a lot of jobs that we haven't thought about. Probably Dr. Happiness, Dr. Chat, a person who actually can go and talk to people, and and then maybe go and create activities. For example, playing games physically, not only in computer, right? Which will make our life much better and easier. So agree, these are the problems which we have not solved to make our life much easier, and humanity will thrive. We will find problems and we find a solution for the problems and keep the people active within the system. But it's problem to be addressed. Yeah. Agree.
I think to allay the fears from an R&D perspective, the reality is, and I'm going to use an analogy which may not be quite appropriate, but AI is like the COVID-19 virus. It's so infectious. It's penetrated into almost every industry sector, every application, very, very quickly. And it has actually overwhelmed our talent system, not the healthcare system. It's very, very difficult to find AI talent today. In 2019, in I2R, I hired 100 staff in 1 year. 2020, another 70. This year, we're probably going to hire another 70 to 80 people. And of course, there is also the churn. So it's not just R&D. These people, these staff come. Some of them already have some experience. Some of them are trained. But the demand is so great that many of them then move on to industry. Many of them also move back to universities to study and learn more. So you know, it's a pandemic situation for talent. There's so many jobs. I don't think that we have to worry at all. I think the students out there are very lucky. You know, and it's not just about AI talent, because AI creates so many new systems, right? And they are not all software systems. There are hardware systems, all kinds of systems. And because they create these new applications, these applications will require other talent to support in other areas, you know. For example, in 5G, we are beginning to see AI being used in 5G because of the complexity of the 5G protocols. And in 6G, in fact, AI is going to be, you know, native to the standard itself. So AI has ignited a whole new set of applications, whole new set of jobs in communications, in connectivity. That's going to be just, you know, demand a lot more talent who understand and know communications, not just AI. And there's just one area. There's so many. There's AI in cybersecurity. So it's just not just getting into the applications. It's also getting into other technologies that spur new applications. So in short, I really don't think we need to worry about AI, you know, taking away jobs from humans. I think on the contrary, it will multiply jobs, you know, in an exponential manner. Thank you.
Just to make things a little bit more candid, I think just building on Dr. Lai's point, there was a time there were no TikTokers or influencers, people that were, you know, that are making their livelihood off these new AI applications. So I think there will be new sectors that will also start to exist. So I know I get your point, but I personally believe that there will be more jobs available in the market in the future. And AI has enabled that. And it's probably cooler, right? I mean, would you like to be a TikToker or a developer? Think about it.
Just to sort of, again, try to summarize what you know, fellow panelists have said, I think it's pretty clear that, you know, job creation is not a zero sum, and you know, the development and proliferation of AI is only going to create more jobs. I think the hard and the key question here to address is upskilling going to be able to catch up with that pace? Because I think even if you look at the general adoption and the speed of, or rather the acceleration of adoption across industries, it's largely through the paradigm of supervised learning. And I think that's where most of the jobs are, quote unquote, threatened. So the key question is, can we upskill our job markets fast enough so that they can start contributing at least to the paradigm of supervised learning? So I think that's one key question, which is probably hard, and I can understand how that could be concerning at a high level in terms of the economics of the job market. But on the other hand, the perspective that I think I can share is of those industries where the lack of labor is sort of the primary forcing function to build AI solutions. And again, I'm going to have to talk about agriculture here. So, you know, just think about the food that comes to your plate. Largely, let's just probably take the example of fruits and vegetables, because these crops are the most labor intensive for cultivation. So even if you just, you know, try to, you know, just get an apple on the table, someone had to go harvest it. Someone had to go take care of those trees on an individual level. And this entire sector of agriculture is entirely sort of, you know, driven by labor. What we've seen through the pandemic is there was a huge void there suddenly, and suddenly the supply side was entirely threatened. And there's replete examples out there, you know, in different economies across the world, where we saw this to be too critical a problem. So just take the example of the UK, for instance, where they started this program called Pick for Britain, where all the people who lost their jobs in the pandemic were offered to go work in the fields just for harvesting, because if no one harvested, they would just the fruits would be rotting on the trees because there's no one to go do the work on the fields. So this is one example. Similarly in other industrialized countries like Germany, where they had to fly in a lot of people from Eastern Europe just to pick the fruits. And this is not getting any better, right? If you look at the average age of workers in agriculture, it's already crossed 50 in most of the industrialized countries. Even in developing countries like India and China, not many people are aspiring to go work in the fields, and why would they? So we're going to see a lot of these examples. Agriculture is a primary one, where the dearth of labor is going to necessitate building solutions in AI, and in this example, it could be robotic solutions for farm management, for operations like harvesting, and essentially it's more of an economic imperative, and hence I would say a moral imperative to build solutions that are autonomous in sectors like agriculture.
Thank you, panelists, for sharing your thoughts. In fact, it's just close family members are asking. They say, "Oh, so my jobs will be gone," and that's why this question is very, very critical. But I get the point from Dr. Etikan, right, who says that the type of jobs do change from time to time as time passes, because we progress. All right, so there some jobs will be gone, but some jobs still need people to do it. For example, take a simple example. We go into a supermarket. We can self-scan our items, right? So does it mean that the cashier, they do not have a job to do? No, it just lighten their load, correct? They just need to walk around and then manage exceptions. So yes, they are still needed, but it lightens their load. And I think I get Mr. Siddharth's point is that because some areas we lack manpower, and therefore we really need AI and machines, smart machines to help us. And then these people who are the few people who are managing, they can just control these machines to help them do the work. So I get the point. There's another question from the audience. Okay, I guess the question is as such. This person, this audience is saying that it's a he or she. I think it's a she, saying that she sort of self-skilled herself in AI. That means she self-learned, self-trained herself, and when she's applying for jobs in companies, companies always look for experience, but not really giving people a chance who are just passionate and self-learn. So would you like to answer that question? Because you are potential employers.
Probably I'll take a stab at this one. So this is from the point of view of a deep tech startup in robotics. And when we look at candidates, what we want to see is a few traits, curiosity, critical thinking, and the ability to learn fast. So long as you're able to demonstrate these three traits, you're already a strong candidate. And the good thing is that it doesn't matter what grades you have or what courses you've taken. Of course, it's helpful, it gives you a good foundation, but, what really stands out is what have you built, by yourself or with teams, purely out of passion, purely out of curiosity. For instance, I think we all know there's an excellent culture here at NTU in robotics, and there's a lot of students who build a lot of things. They compete in global competitions. And that's super exciting. When we see some candidates who have worked on these kind of projects, they stand out. We couldn't care less what courses they've taken or what's their majors in. But the real question is, have you spent enough time to build something? So I think that's something that we look for from the point of view of a startup, because when you go out there and build and just follow your curiosity, it's the best way to learn and experience how difficult the problems are going to be, and if that's something that you really want to do. So for us, that's a marker more so than having done what sort of courses or having to look into what sort of certifications you have. So as long as you're building something and following your curiosity, I think that's already a great start.
Yep. I mean, I think it's a good start for the person who actually did a self-learning. I'm sure they have taken some kind of courses online. I think it's a great initiative. I appreciate that. Continue doing so. But having the self-learning and also the online courses may not be sufficient. You need to engage in terms of active project, right? Solve a real problem with the real data set that you have, the algorithm, so that you have objective to achieve. And in many other cycles, and all of us gone through here in the panelists, right? It's just different problems, different exposure, different projects that you've gone through. You start with a job where you could actually solve the problem as what the industry wanted first. And then you work with them for a year or two, and you get real hands-on, right? And then progressively, as you get skilled in the specific area, solving real problem as an engineer, you could then, look for a better job. You got to start somewhere which you have started rightfully, get the first job. Start from there, you go into the next one and so forth. Nobody stops you except yourself.
I think my short answer is passion is key. So if you are passionate enough to learn by yourself, that is already a very strong point in your favor. At iSquareL, we do a lot of training. In fact, the majority of our staff were not in AI 5 years ago, and they had to learn AI by themselves. Of course, it is dependent on which level of competency you want to achieve, right? You will not become an AI researcher, after learning by yourself. But there are many areas, many applications where you really don't need to have that depth of knowledge. You will gain it in time. So don't be disheartened, just, keep applying.
Yeah, I'd like to build on that as well. I think it's definitely a journey, right? There are multiple roles in AI, and maybe not in the capacity of the developer, at least for a start. For example, in Micron, we actually have a lot of process engineers, a lot of yield engineers that do become developers, do become data science practitioners. And the simple fact is data science itself needs to be amalgamated with actual domain knowledge. And that could be an area to start as well. So even today, we do have roles called the Industry 4.0 analyst, where this person plays not a domain expert role, neither a data science role, but they play a translator role, where this person, this analyst, is able to understand what the technicalities are in terms of engineering problems they need to solve, but also bring a very business angle to those solutions. So what are those that are the use cases that we can operationalize, industrialize, make, for lack of better words, make money out of it, and communicate that with the data science folks. How do we program this algorithm? How do we develop this software in a way that it can be fully operationalized? So I think don't get disheartened, but also don't think of it as a one-dimensional door of entry. You don't have to only be a data scientist or a software developer or a data engineer to be involved with AI. There are multiple ways to get in. And domain expertise is actually one of it.
So from my perspective, I mean, you guys are in really exciting times because you have so many resources to learn from, and you have so much of public data sets available to solve real business problems, which has been already solved by the industry players. So there is so much to learn from. So you don't need to get disheartened that you don't have an experience and you won't get a job in this field. It doesn't work like that. Majority of the industry players look for fresh talent. SAP has its program called Early Talent, so we directly hire from universities as part of this program. So what we look for is talent who has solved real business problems and worked on real complex challenges, and not just understand one part of that solution, but have a holistic view of how a particular data science problem is solved, and can be deployed in a productive environment. So having that end-to-end understanding gives you a brownie point when you go to an interview and share with your interviewers that this is how a particular problem is solved, and this is how you roll it out in a productive grade environment. So learn, and it's an exciting time. There are so many ample of opportunities out there for you to grab on. And as Dr. Lee mentioned that there are so many jobs, but not enough talent. So all the best to you guys.
Thank you for the answers. So it's very heartened and happy to know that at least the companies here, they're willing to employ you. But an interesting point by Mr. Lee saying that you may not need, if you're interested in doing AI-related jobs, you do not really need to be something like programming or come up with the coding for algorithm. There are other supporting roles equally exciting, like the domain experts. You need to know, understand the data, right? Then you can make use of the data to do some interesting stuff. All right. There's another question. Not sure if. Okay, so the question is this: COVID has taught all of us the importance of innovation and embracing the fourth industry technologies, such as digitalization of supply chain. So how can we be, as a nation, continue to innovate in the way that we are proactive to potential issues rather than being reactive? So I think he's saying something like, from your point of view, how do you encourage innovation rather than waiting for things to happen, then we react to it? I guess your companies may have a culture of promoting innovations. Any comments?
Yeah, I can start that first. So it's a very important point. How do we look at the future, right? I think one of the things that we look at is, I think somebody talked about it as well, process automation, right? How do you improve, get it better? But of course, one approach is incremental innovation. The other one is you jump, right? Which is totally, you do a circuit breaker and then you go into totally different way of solving the problem, right? So both ways is important. So let's say, for example, I give an industry example, right? In the space of manufacturing, defects inspections. I've seen defects inspection in many kind of forms, from wafer, from car manufacturing, from part manufacturing, and so forth. So the defect rate is maybe from, I've seen from 10%, I've seen from 40%, 60%, going all the way to only 5%, right? So what they have done is they look at the whole process flow and where innovation can go in, right? It could be as simple as applying machine learning algorithm, right? It could be XGBoost, for example, or random forest, or you're looking at graph analytics of nodes and so forth, or looking at, collecting large amount of data, training your probably efficient net, your lean net or LXNet and so forth. You want to bring it in to apply. So incrementally, they solve some of the bottlenecks, improve the yield, and automate the whole process. So that's one particular way of doing it. The other one is like in the space of agriculture that I've seen, it is how you apply drone, for example, right? To remove some of the problems. For example, if we take Singapore, we have 30-30, right? By 2030, we should have 30% of the local produce for food supply. So how are we going to achieve? Because we have short of land space that we have, and then we have lack of manpower. So robotics comes in place. It has to be there. And then AI has to help. You got to have vertical farming, for example. And how are we going to solve? So that is the problem. To solve the problem is not about incrementally solving it, but you take a leapfrog. You got to have certain type of jump into a different method of solving the problem. So I think both ways of continuously looking for optimization in terms of making it different is a way that I think you could apply AI, or also whatever is going to come after AI in the next coming years.
Any other takers?
Just probably to maybe try to answer that at a higher level. Okay. I think this sort of, when it comes to some of the innovations that we've seen through the course of the pandemic, a lot of them were being worked on for a long time before that. And I think one good example that Dr. Etikan just mentioned is Singapore's goals for food security, which is highlighted as 30 by 30, was already in place since 2018, I believe. What the pandemic did was it, severely accelerated what sort of technologies were funded and supported by the government. And for instance, there were huge grants offered by Singapore Food Agency to accelerate local production of certain strategic crops like leafy greens and poultry products. So in that sense, I think through the pandemic, there was certainly a big role that policy making had in accelerating this innovation. And I think besides that, it's sort of hard to imagine how some of these technologies and innovations could be de-risked. So I think that's certainly one key element there.
And building on not just policy, but I think the industry, industrials play a big role in this evolution, right? Take electric cars, take self-driving cars. Those were not reactions to what we are facing today. It was a vision that drove the innovation. People believed enough in that vision for it to be realized. Some things, yes, we will never be able to predict. I think kudos to the Singaporean policymakers. After SARS, they've already put in place some plans to make sure that we don't get hit so hard the next pandemic. But you will never be able to predict how the spread. You will not be able to predict the fatality rates. So that's a little bit of a difficult question to answer. I think you will have, especially policymakers will have, and at the country level, will have a lot of these scenarios that will have been already thought of and discussed. And then those that have high probability, or they believe have high probability to manifest, they would invest resources in planning for those outcomes. But I think as industries, we can also have visions, right? We envision things to be faster, we envision things to be better, and it always starts with that vision. And if enough people believe in a certain vision, then you will get enough resources put in that space to make things work. I believe I know it's a bit abstract, it's a little bit, for lack of better words, fluffy, but that's how it works. It's someone's dream. So if we all dream, we all put our aspirations forward, and be bold, right? Be brave, be shameless almost, to say that this is something that we can do. I mean, agriculture in Singapore, who would have thought, right? But it wasn't a reaction, it was a vision that this could solve a potential problem. So start from a problem, create a vision of a zero-based vision of what it could be. And if you have enough people believing that that is the right way to go, you will have the resources to get there.
Just a different perspective and more towards execution side of the things. So when we talk about innovation and introducing something new, the timing matters, right? So any idea which is ahead of time or way before time is bound to not be successful in that time frame. So, so timing matters. So whenever you are thinking about ideas and discussing with your friends and coming up with a cool idea, ask yourself, is this the right time to introduce that particular idea into the market? Second point, again, on the execution side of the things, whenever we are brainstorming any idea, we look into 3 dimensions as part of the innovation cycle: desirability, feasibility, and viability of that idea. The idea, is it desirable by the end users, customers, or consumers? Is it feasible? Do you have right technology to develop that idea? Do you have right algorithms, right computing power, right IT infrastructure to develop and roll out that idea? And thirdly, viable. Whether is it meaningful for you to run that particular idea in a productive environment? Can you sustain that for a long term? Is your total cost of ownership of that idea is covered when you roll that out? So some perspectives for you guys to consider when you're ideating some new innovation from an execution point of view. So timing, desirability, feasibility, and viability, just keep these things in your mind. Thank you.
I think from my perspective, we are a lot more fortunate than companies, right? we are able to have the resources to look ahead, to pre-position ourselves. So we do that to a certain extent. We try to have a portfolio of long-term, research, middle-term, and then some short-term. But the key is that at the end of the day, you need to place bets. Okay, some big bets, some smaller ones, and you've got to persist. For example, today we have quite a lot of capabilities in NLP. And that journey we invested in more than 25 years ago. It took us 25 years to get to a stage where some of the work can be deployed in a real life situation. So, and I agree timing is right, but the saying, luck favors the prepared. If you're not prepared and the right time comes, you miss the opportunity. So I would say that nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody can say, what's going to happen. And the world today is so complex and so complicated that it is even more difficult to predict. For example, the question mentioned supply chain. Actually, it was a double whammy. It was not just COVID. It was the geopolitical situation, and then hit by COVID that created this huge stress on our supply chain problem. So my advice is you've just got to study, identify, select areas that you want to invest in, and of course, personally, you have to make that choice as well, which area you're going to go into. And then be persistent with it and prepare yourself. Opportunities will come. If it's not the exact opportunity that you had wished for, then you have to be flexible to change, to adapt to something slightly different. But if you are prepared, I'm sure you can easily move to an adjacent area.
All right, thank you again for the answers. But I gather that, yes, we have always been proactive in our industry companies. We do have projects in mind. It's just that, like what Mr. Lee has mentioned, some things are not predictable. Who knows that COVID-19 can evolve or can progress until today? Okay, so that we need to adapt, and that is the strength of humankind. We are adaptable. All right, so, okay, let's move on to the last question. By this student, he wanted to ask, in the future, what kind of hardware accelerators could be created to accelerate AI workloads? So maybe those are hardware?
I'm from NVIDIA, so our life is about creating the hardware which accelerates all the algorithms and also application that you develop. Our CEO Jensen has, he has a vision and he has seen, like you have seen many years ago. And Andrew Ng, who's one of the early founder of the new modern AI, right? When he met and saw Jensen, he said, "Your GPU is not. I don't have a good enough compute power. So can you help me to give some GPUs to compute my AI algorithm?" So Jensen has, helped him, kind enough, and we actually need to redesign the architecture of GPU just to meet the compute complexity. This is way back in 2011, 2012 period, right? Almost 10 years ago, and so since then, today, you can see the MLPerf benchmark, which is done publicly. NVIDIA has the highest compute capability in terms across all kind of algorithm being done, whether it's NLP, whether it's computer vision, and so forth. And the nice gaming card, those who are 3080 that you have, you buy, those who are gamers will know what I'm talking about. You have thousands of cores. Core means a GPU, compute core, right? And our latest card, which comes as part of the Ampere architecture, has 10,000 CUDA cores. I'm not talking about 20, 30, 40. I'm talking about 10,000 CUDA cores, which runs in concurrent. And these CUDA cores in only a single GPU. We put them together in a system, it's called a DGX, with 8 GPUs. And these 10,000 connected together with 8, which gives you 80,000. And this 80,000 is not enough. We have to put together multiple DGXs. Some of the NLP algorithm that we are running, our customers are running today, needs almost 140 DGXs. So 140 times 80,000. That is a concurrent CUDA cores which actually runs. So for example, if you see GPT-3, right? And that's how this, the compute intensive algorithms runs. So coming back to answer the question, what will happen is we are continuously, NVIDIA continuously designing, and new hardware architecture will be available. Jensen will announce in the coming GDC or the next GDC. So we have evolved in the last 10 years. Every 2 years, our performance either doubles or becomes 3 times or 4 times much faster. If you see the progressively from Fermi architecture to Kepler architecture, Maxwell and Pascal and so forth. The system compute capability is going to increase. While each and every GPUs will have more cores, it also will have more compute elements. Like what we call DLA, Deep Learning Accelerator. It's accelerated deep learning. And then we have what we call DPU, Data Processing Accelerator. So, because the way that we look at AI, as Dr. Lee mentioned, right? So in terms of 5G communication, in going to be in a 6G is going to be much more even complex, which is going to be built in. As the packet arrives in the radio network, it's a radio, right? It's a radio layer 1. And then the layer 2, you need to process MAC layer. And then it goes to a layer 3, IP layer. You need to have some kind of AI algorithm will be running across all the way. So we have a DPU, data processing unit, which is another one more hardware. GPU is, graphical processing unit, but becomes a GPU, general purpose compute. You have a DPU, then we have a CPU, which comes together. So it's going to be a multi-dimensional approach. Hardware compute component, multiple hardware compute component, and then they scale into a system, and they scale into large scale system. And this is going to grow, and this is to cater for a high compute intensive task, like a GPT-3, like of algorithms, or many other algorithms you're going to complex enough. That's one side. On the other side, we also need low resource, low compute, so that if you have trillions of devices, can run simple algorithm very fast to have a timely implementation or execution of AI algorithm. So which is NVIDIA is working closely on ARM architecture. So you will have very small, low resource, low cost compute algorithm in a small devices which you don't even see, but they will actually be performing. So it will grow in both directions.
All I can just say is I think CUDA is one of the greatest innovations of the past decade or so, and startups like PolyB are standing on the shoulder of giants. So yeah.
So a little further down the road, there's also a new technology called neuromorphic computing, which unfortunately requires analog systems, development of MRAMs and so on. But some chips are already available, quite large chips. There's one from Intel, I think it's called the Loihi. And the key differentiator for neuromorphic computing is that it is very, very low powered. So that you can use it for certain AI algorithms that require to be battery powered for long hours. So that's another new technology that's on the horizon.
Okay, so thank you for sharing, especially from experts on hardware. Of course, we do hope that one fine day, I'm not sure how long we need to wait, one fine day whereby this, some small chip here can be as powerful as our GPU. All right, we hope for the day to come. And okay, I think today we have a very good discussion. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you, panelists. Audience, yeah, I think we would end for today. Not enough. So maybe next year we'll meet again and have another good discussion. All right, so for those at home, everyone here have a great evening. Have a good dinner if you have not had one. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you again, and back to MC Ying Jie.
Thank you, Dr. Tan, and guest panelists for the informative and exciting discussion. I hope everyone has enjoyed the panel discussion. To express our appreciation for the panelists, I would like to invite the Dean of College of Engineering, Professor Louis Fee, up on stage to present tokens of appreciation to the panelists. Professor Fee, please. Firstly, we would like to present a token of appreciation to Dr. Lai Kim Moon. Dr. Lai, please. Thank you, and please take your seat. And next, Mr. Li Ning Kang. Mr. Li, please. Thank you, and please take your seat. And next, Dr. Edikan Karupaya. Dr. Karupaya, please. Thank you, and please take your seat. And next, Mr. Madhur Mayank Sharma. Mr. Sharma, please. Thank you, and please take your seat. Last but not least, Mr. Siddharth Jadhav. Mr. Jadhav, please. Thank you, and please take your seat. Thank you, Professor Fee, and please take your seat. We have now come to the end of the opening ceremony, and I would like to thank all our guests and virtual audience for joining us tonight. We would like to thank Gather Town for supporting our event by providing its virtual platform for us to use. I would like to invite the virtual attendees to join our virtual career booth. Please follow the instructions on the slide to join the career booth. Thank you. For the on-site attendees, we have prepared bento refreshments at the registration booth at the foyer. Thank you and have a pleasant evening.